Good morning. Because I'm the last speaker of the day, I have to try to be as brief as possible. Can you load my presentation? Yes, thank you. Okay. Let me spend a little bit of time to explain where we're coming from. Italy is a small country. It's not particularly well organized and very efficient for agriculture. We're only 300,000 square kilometers, about 30 million hectares. We're losing 250,000 hectares to fruitful agriculture almost every year. The current agricultural surface is about 10 million hectares and decreasing. In Europe, most of the farmers so far are counting on the 50% or now 44% of the European budget that goes graciously to subsidize European agriculture. Now, two things have happened even before the new government came to change things in Italy. The new vision of the European community has followed up some of the discussions that were held with the farmers. When you fight with the farmers in France or in Germany or in Italy, and at a certain point the farmer doesn't know what to say, he says, oh, but you have to pay me because I maintain and support the territory. I'm the gardener of Europe. So now the European community have taken the farmers seriously, and they said, okay, if you're the gardener, we pay you to be gardener. So the new European Community package for 2013 will not be based on production or very often non-production in order to keep the price at a certain level, but will be based on how sustainable the farming industry in Europe will be. So there are going to be two pillars, and one of the pillars will be the protection of the environment, meaning how much water you consume, how much fertilizer you use, how much land are you losing per year. So if you want the European taxpayer money, you have to be really the gardener of Europe. Now this is a Copernican revolution for the farmers in Europe, and we were seeing that coming. And also we were seeing another thing coming that I believe is to be said everywhere, including Brazil, but definitely including United States, Europe. In a crisis moment where the taxpayer money is precious and when there is a polemics about how to use public money, we thought that it would be worth to work into biofuels only if, in the long run, biofuel would be sustainable without any support, any subsidies, or any taxpayer money. I had a Prime Minister that has been Prime Minister for many years, 10, 15 in the last 20 years, that as a motto says, I will not put my hands in taxpayers' pockets. Now, unfortunately, this didn't happen, at least not in my country, but for sure I can tell you that we think it's worth discussing biofuel only if in the long run this will be sustainable. So we had to clarify what is sustainability from an environmental point of view and what is sustainability from a cost point of view. And of course, in order to make sure that the oil companies were taking us seriously, we were trying to understand what is the benchmark. Because of course at $150 per barrel with oil, a lot of things is sustainable, but at $10 per barrel, much less. So it's not that I invented anything. I took the 10-year plan of BP and Shell, and I found consensus that as an average, the cost of oil would be between $60 and $70 per barrel. Today is higher, but it has been lower. So my logic is, if biofuel is sustainable at $60 to $7 per barrel, then we're talking about the serious alternative. If it is sustainable only when oil is $200 per barrel, then I think we have to do something else. From an environmental point of view, it is clear that I tend to mention often this sentence that the President Lula mentioned at the FAO meeting in Rome a few years ago. He came and it was in the middle of a turmoil, people shouting about sustainability in fuel versus food and all this. And Mr. Lula very calmly said, look, guys, ethanol is like cholesterol. There is good cholesterol and good ethanol, ours, and then there is bad cholesterol and bad ethanol, so the ethanol from corn. Now, that has calmed basically the assembly there. In general, what we think is worth is there's no rocket science here. We can argue decimals or thousands, but in practical terms, all the scientists in the world, they tend to agree on the methodology to analyze and to evaluate the sustainability. A life cycle assessment, however you want to take it, from the GRIT model, well to ill, or with other models, more or less gives the same solutions. And the solution is every biofuels gives back the CO2 that has sequestered on the field. The difference is if in order to sequester on the field, you are using energy, a substantially consumption of CO2 in the process, then there are certain biofuels which are not sustainable. And I have to say that if the biofuel is transferred for 10,000 miles burning diesel, sometimes this is not going to be exactly a very sustainable practice. So based on this, it has to be sustainable economically for the people that buy, so the buyers, the drivers. It has to be sustainable economically and environmentally for how it's made, and also it has to make some profit for the farmers. Otherwise, in the long run, the farmers will not make available the biomass, and that is extremely important. Now, there'll be a lot of slides, but I will rush through. We have invested $200 million in the last 5 years based on this conviction, and we have arrived in our two centers to arrive to a breakthrough technologies. Now, these are the numbers that I'm carrying around. We think we have arrived with a technology that will make available fermentable sugars, meaning C5 and C6, at 10 cents a pound. So $220, $230 per metric tons. The ethanol will be produced at $400, 40 cents a liter, and there will be a pure lignin as a byproduct. Pure lignin is about 30% of the biomass. I only want to give you a data that will allow you to make a comparison, and the director here from Petrobras can evaluate. Today, at the international price, virgin naphtha contains about 25% of aromatics and has a cost between $1,200 and $1,500 per metric ton. Lignin cost is calorific power, so about $100 per metric ton, and contains 85% of aromatics. So it's common sense that another 200 or 500 or $1 billion will have to be spent in order for everybody, oil companies, petrochemical companies, and biofuel companies, to extract these aromatics, because they will be good to be inserted in the standard chemicals. So far, biochemicals and biofuels have been seen as an alternative to fuel. Now, if you look at Wikipedia and you look at the definition of green economy is a global concept where every economy based on fuel, fossil fuel, or on green fuels is improving its sustainability, its consumptions, and its yield versus a more sustainable position. I am very much in favor of the fact that today we have a handful of national oil company, a handful of international oil company, and a couple of dozens of very large chemical companies. Those companies, together with the enzymologists, together with the biotechnicians, together with the farmers and the agronomists, should work together in order to improve the sustainability of the current chemicals, of the current biochemicals. So I think this is green economy. Very often green economy is seen only as the reduced impact of economy from green. On the contrary, there is a lot of improvement, a lot of space, and the cooperation between the fossil fuel companies and the green fuel companies will help. For sure, what we are bringing to the table, and as the gentleman from the NDS has said, we're going to start up the first second generation plant in Italy. In August, we'll start up the boiler. In September, we'll start up the ethanol plant. This is an ethanol plant that will produce between 50 and 60,000 metric tons of ethanol, starting from Arunodonax, which is a cane not too different from sugar cane, but with no sugars, only cellulose, a sort of energy cane, with rice straw, because Vercelli is in the middle of the rice region, so we use the residual there, and with wheat straw. This technology carries this characteristic, brings the technology in the plant to the biomass rather than the biomass to the plant. The plant will be able to use 6, 7, 8, 10 different type of biomasses in the same plant with no change of hardware or software, and this will allow to use the biodiversity of the territory, so you don't need to make a huge plantation of something, because if there is availability of sugarcane leaves and bagasse for 9 months, and then there is eucalyptus, and then there is straw, and then there is wood, in the same plant you can cover all the year by using the same land. Now, let me spend a moment about the question of the land. Clearly, I share my concern on a global basis and on the Brazilian perspective. Once we're talking about moving from 10 million hectares to 20 million hectares for sugarcane, this means finding new lands, new infrastructure. The gentleman from Petrobras has shown a very large project with $4 billion investment. This takes a substantial commitment, which commitment that in Brazil exists. In other parts of the world exists much less. In Africa doesn't exist at all today. What I am bringing to the table is with this technology, every mill that today does not use 100% of sugarcane straw and of sugarcane bagasse can increase the capacity with the same footprint of sugarcane plantation, same footprint of water, same footprint of agriculture. What is happening today is you take the sugarcane, you produce the juice, you produce the sugar, you have the vinasse, and you have the bagasse. Now, what I'm suggesting is you take the bagasse, you ferment the bagasse to ethanol, and then you take the lignin and you generate electricity out of the lignin. This, by default, will increase the capacity of the mill between 25 and 40%, depending on how much bagasse is already using for energy generation. And then there are the leaves and the straw. Leaves and straw, as you know, they're left on the field or they're not collected too much. Brazil has a very large availability on leaves and straw and a fairly large availability of bagasse, less than what people think, because in particular in São Paulo state, the efficiency and the energy balance of the plant is already guaranteed by the burning of the bagasse. So it's not exactly the same thing that people think and say, okay, if I produce 100 tons of sugar cane per hectare, then I have a lot of availability of bagasse. Not really. First of all, 100 tons per sugar cane per hectare means 30 to 35 tons of dry mass. The rest is water. So out of the 35 tons per dry mass, you produce 5, 6 tons, or let's say 3 to 4 tons, or 5 to 6 thousand liters of ethanol. You have almost the same quantity of bagasse, about 50% is burnt in order to make electricity. So the availability of bagasse with the current footprint is relatively small. Now, what I'm bringing here is the first fruit of a cooperation between Brazil and Italy. I am happy to announce that this is a development that has been done in Italy. The director of my research, Luis Oriani, is a Brazilian from University of Campinas. He's been living in Italy for some time. We will come to Brazil soon to operate with local operators to produce the second generation. And Brazil continues to be blessed by a climate and by an environmental condition that will make of Brazil, and of São Paulo State in particular, the right environment to develop this technology. So by chance and by need, we developed this technology in Italy, but my expectation is Brazil will be the place where this technology will thrive, and that hopefully will help Brazil to overcome some of the shortage and also to increase the lifetime of the plantation. I understand I'm almost running out of trouble, so you will have this presentation available at the site, and the organization will make it available. One thing I want to say is this technology does not involve any chemicals, so it's a treatment of temperature and pressure, low temperature, low pressure, and is very gentle in the treatment of the biomass. This will reduce the inhibitors and will improve the usability of the chemicals coming out of this. My family has invested in Brazil in the last 10 years. We, as has been mentioned by the ambassador, we are one of the large investors in Pernambuco, in Minas Gerais, in São Paulo State. I know that the environment of Brazil is particularly good. We have extremely good cooperation with the local manufacturer of ethanol and with the companies like Amiris, like Genomatica, like Codexis, that came to Brazil in order to find sugars. We are expecting to deliver cheap sugar in Brazil, and the sugars in Brazil will continue to be competitive, I would say cheaper than any other place. The second generation only announced this opportunity, but doesn't change the equation. Brazil has a competitive advantage and will continue to have a competitive advantage. What I'm telling you is probably we will not need another 10 million hectares of feedstock in order to achieve a 30–40% increase of production of ethanol. The Proesa technology will now move to biochemicals, bioethylene, bioaromatics, and eventually the final target will be drop-in fuels, and we're close to demonstrate this on a scale of, let's say, R&D scale. It's too much for slide. What I can tell you is a plant will be built in Brazil possibly before the end of 2013 as a startup, meaning the construction of the plant will start in Brazil in the next months. Very soon you will hear an announcement about that. This plant will be based on leaves and bagasse of sugarcane, and there'll be other biomass that'll be usable in the plant. So thank you very much for this, and I hope we can have some questions later on. Thank you. Bye-bye.